Should the USA place a fat tax on sugary drinks and junk food to combat obesity? Why or why not? We have a sugar tax in San Francisco. I work for a soda company and we expected our sugar-free sales to rise, but we found out people actually don't care about paying 5 cents more for what they want. This could have to do with the demographic of SF and might not hold the same across the country. We have this in the UK. It seems to be working. Nevertheless, the fall in the amount of sugar consumed through soft drinks is bigger than the slight rise in sugar consumption through these foods. Across all these product categories put together, sugar consumption decreased by 3% per person in Great Britain between 2015 and 2018. Full fact, it's also made drinks makers put less sugar in their products to avoid the tax, which is also a win in my eyes. Edit. Apparently it's doing well in Mexico too. What? This is actually already a thing in Philadelphia, minus the junk food. It's extremely unpopular here. I read that sales dropped 50% in the city, while it raised sales outside of it over 40%. Making this a national policy would cause a lot of upset. Edit. I feel compelled to add, since this keeps coming up, that I do support the idea behind taxing unhealthy foods. Obviously something needs to be done about the obesity rates and health issues going on in this country. However, I also feel like there are better ways to do it. Instead of increasing the cost of unhealthy foods, which, as other commenters have said, can have negative effects on the poor. Although this seems to be under debate, why not try to decrease the cost and increase the variety of healthier food options? Why not increase education and awareness around healthy eating? Or why not pass regulations requiring junk foods to have less of the ingredients that make it junk? I feel like there are so many other alternatives that aren't guaranteed to piss people off. I think the money collected from the tax went to fund public schools as well. If you remove subsidies from the food industry, I think you will find that healthy foods end up far cheaper than unhealthy ones. Edit. Thanks for my first gold/silver. This subsidies distort the market to an unbelievable degree. To pick just one example, the subsidized production of corn makes HFCS super cheap. If these subsidies were removed, sugary drinks would automatically be more expensive. And likely so would beef, encouraging people to find substitutes. Instead, we want to subsidize the agribusinesses that make the stuff, then tax the consumer at the point of sale. Can we at least start with removing the subsidies? Instead of making soda and junk more expensive, how about we make healthy food less expensive? Rice, beans, potatoes, lentils, chickpeas, onions, bananas, spinach, peppers, eggs, squash, tofu. All that is some of the cheapest food there is. I think it's more that processed healthy food is more expensive than processed unhealthy food. If you're willing to do basic cooking, it's possible to eat very well and very cheaply. I'd say nah, because there's a huge gray area. Oh, so definitely we are taxing butter. White bread definitely, yeah, the nice artisan French bread is included under that umbrella. All condiments we'll tax. Ketchup is sugar and mayo is oil. Pickles too, yeah, they're just pure sodium. Etc. Just look at Seattle, where milk-based beverages are exempt from the sugary drink tax, so people can still get their untaxed Starbucks drinks with more sugar per oz than a can of Coke. We all know how Americans reacted to a tea tax. If the tea drinking community got that fired up, imagine what the Mountain Dew drinking community would do. Gamers rise up. There are many pros and cons to this, but at the end of the day, I have to say I'm against it for a few primary reasons. 1. It disproportionately affects poor people, who already struggle. Although this is indirect, and mostly due to the impoverished working more than those with more money. Yes, ironic. And so having less time to cook healthy meals for themselves. 2. It doesn't fight the primary causes of obesity, which are mostly unbalanced diets with too little exercise. Most easily combated by giving children more supervised exercise and less supervised desk time, and properly funding schools and extracurricular activities. Too much unhealthy food can exacerbate the issue, but then again, do we all agree what constitutes unhealthy? I gave myself 15 kidney stones by overeating raw spinach faster than my body could process the calcium stone precursors. Is spinach healthy? Of course, in moderation, as are fatty foods, like steak, bacon, and dairy. We also need carbohydrates from candy, bread, and fruit. So this raises the question, what do we tax? 3. Poor diet education in schools. Everything I learned about real nutrition I learned as an adult. Almost everything before college was not only useless, but many times wrong, and often actually worse than saying nothing. Examples: tongues aren't separated by taste and the food pyramid was already outdated when I was in school. And, from what I learned during my master's class, what we know about our biology is surface information for the most part. A lot of facts about nutrition are our best guess at the time. And, what works for me might not work for someone else. Separate, but relevant. Label laws in the USA are worse than useless, and a much more noticeable cause of obesity. Incidentally, also easier to fix, but harder to lobby for, because name brands make a lot of money off these poor laws. Case in point, Tic Tac brand mints are legally labeled sugar-free as containing zero sugar, despite being made almost 100% from sugar. This is due to the fact a serving is a single Tic Tac, which weighs just barely under 5 grams. Legally, in the United States, any serving with less than half a gram of sugar can be labeled sugar-free rounded down to 0 on the nutrition sheet. Wikipedia: legally, I could label 25g sugar packets as sugar-free, nutritionally zero sugar. Edit for not quite right info about Tic Tacs. Yeah, my first thought is this is a tax on poor people. No, it just seems like a patronizing money grab that will disproportionately hurt low-income individuals that live in food deserts neighborhoods with few or no grocery stores and limited availability of fresh and non-processed food. Soda is a luxury good. There's literally no reason for anyone to buy soda, even in a food desert. If you're in Flint, Michigan, even bottled water will be cheaper than soda. Do you feel other things which are taxed, like tobacco and alcohol, shouldn't be because they're more commonly used in lower income areas? 2. Edit: if you're unaware, states already dictate how the poor eat. Social welfare programs like SNAP and WIC often have significant limits to what food items and even brands are allowed to be purchased with allotments. Washington Post. No, sin taxes are stupid and shouldn't be legal. Sin taxes are basically a tax on poor people, and it doesn't help them at all. It hurts them more than it hurts anyone else. Also, we have a sugar tax in the UK and it basically ruined a lot of products. Ripine Brew, since companies changed the recipes to comply with the rules, reducing sugar amounts, adding substitutes, etc. Close bracket. Why should everyone be punished because a few people don't have any self-control? No, I don't believe it's the government's job to control the choices people make. Even if it was, the US provides abundant subsidies to the corn industry, so sugary food is already technically subsidized. Also, I don't trust regulators to do it right. For some reason we already have a meaningless label on our food for added sugar that makes juices appear healthy. I'm really surprised I had to come this far down to see this said. Whatever happened to liberty and freedom of choice? No, I don't believe it's the government's place to stop citizens from doing stupid shit that harms themselves. The point of a tax on an unhealthy product is to offset the healthcare costs related to its use. Deterring use because of cost is a bonus. As the US government does not believe in universal healthcare, it should definitely not be taxing it at a higher rate. That's my opinion anyway. In European studies it actually cost a lot less in healthcare for people to live unhealthy lives, because it more often leads to heart attack and stroke, the cheapest deaths, right around retirement age. The majority of healthcare costs come from people who live a long time and are on like 30 meds a day and double knee and hip replacements and multiple hospital stays and elderly care services. This is of course putting no value on living beyond retirement age, but purely economically it really doesn't have any. Nope, I lift weights, spin, and run. I keep myself at an acceptable weight and health level. I don't want to pay extra for an occasional snack because other people can't control themselves. No, it's one of those feel-good legislations which causes more harm than good. No, that's called petty tyranny. There's this underlying idea that I've encountered a lot recently, in which any social problem needs to be solved via top-down legislation, usually at the federal level. Obesity and diet are a major issue, but I think there are probably better ways to bring about the change without jumping into the murky waters of banned legislation, incentives, social change, supporting healthier food options, etc etc. And it's shocking how many people support it today, all while claiming to support freedom. I've been a Democrat my entire life, but this is one area where I strongly disagree with the party. This is an awful economic idea. People should have the freedom to consume the beverages and foods that they want, and also be able to accept responsibility for their choices. So we should get rid of tax on tobacco then? We don't have healthcare, so how's that going to combat obesity? People will still pay for chews that's bad for you. Look at cigarettes and alcohol. I'd be pissed if my mother, a diabetic because her pancreas crapped out, she's not obese, had to pay another tax on the soda she drinks when she has a low blood sugar. Agreed, except it's my little C's in this scenario. No, the government isn't your ducking mother. It's not there to tell you how to live your life. While we're at it, repeal all sin taxes on tobacco, booze, lottery, etc. No, it's their choice to consume unhealthy goods. We tax the chiz out of everything in the US already. It really doesn't change usage much. What are you talking about? Haven't you noticed how taxes have fixed the homeless problem? The war on drugs is over, and your local infrastructure is top notch and state of the art. Taxes fix everything, and will definitely stop obesity and a changing climate. More taxes. What if skinny people like those drinks and foods? Why should they have to pay a fat tax? Maybe the government shouldn't have spent the last 35 years telling people that fat in food was bad and high carbohydrate intake is great. People are making the argument that soda is bad, while at the same time pushing items like low-fat milk where fat is removed and replaced by sugar to make up for the flavor. It's a free country where people have to pay for their own healthcare, isn't it? So what does it matter if people get fat? Medicare and Medicaid? If they did that, people would try to recall Leslie Knope. Scrolled way too far to find this. Attempting to adjust obesity levels via economic incentives is going to do nearly nothing to solve the issue. People are not obese because they cannot afford healthy food. Portion control alone would allow someone to maintain a reasonable weight even on a carb-based diet. The root cause is low self-control. If someone eats exclusively McDonald's because he or she is addicted to the flavor and portion size, then raising the cost via tax will only accomplish making the person bankrupt. The govt has tried the same strategy to combat smoking with little success, and the same problem occurs. Addicts end up spending even more of their limited money on the object of their habits, leaving their dependence without food and the addict's addiction intact. The best way to combat obesity is likely individual treatment. Personal training, psychiatric help, and the aid of a dietitian are key, and ultimately if the foregoing doesn't help, then surgery might be necessary. The low self-control that causes obesity is sometimes very innate and inherited, so it's impossible for some, even very rich and or smart people, to adhere to a strict diet and exercise routine. I only agree half of what you say. I'm working in a master's food science, and my cohorts and other cohorts in different schools who are in extension program for public outreach schedule our outreach programs based on the obesity data we have, and the lack of healthy food has been a consistent trend in food desserts. In these areas, vegetables and fresh meat are scarce in their grocery stores, and if there are any, they are twice or thrice more expensive in other larger stores. Low-income people obviously will go for cheaper food to minimize their expense, and in large quantity to fill their stomachs. That being said, I'm very happy to see stores like Aldi and Lidl slowly coming to lower SE's communities because they do have good produce at lower price by lowering labor costs. These areas also happen to have low quality of public education, which also unfortunately includes lack of education regarding good nutrition. I think people should just take some personal responsibility. Duck me, right? This is Reddit. People want complete government control, no responsibilities, complete socialism, and government programs from cradle to grave making every decision for you. Yes, because that's how we eradicated smoking, by making cigarettes more expensive. So if we turn healthy foods into a vape situation we are golden. I think they should make healthier food cheaper and more common. It's the kind of stuff that goes on in countries that have lower obesity rates. Edit. I guess I'm kinda stating what other people are saying. I don't live in the US myself, but it's definitely a cultural aspect that in some countries people are just used to buying healthier food, and that it's just a more socially normal thing for them. Fast food may be advertised better as well in the US. Personally, I live in the UK and my family buys healthy food, but that's not always common here. Healthy food isn't expensive. I don't care what anyone says. I pay $5.98 at Walmart for a 10-pound bag of leg quarters that nets me probably around 4-5 pounds of deboned meat. Boston but pork roast, $1.49/pounds, $0.99/pounds on sale here. It's not that hard to eat healthy, you just have to cook. I made cabbage roll soup last week for under $20 for a 10-quart stock pot full and ended up with 15 freezer meals out of it after we all ate dinner the first night. Healthy food is not expensive compared to junk food, and I will die on this hill. What about those who aren't obese? And those who are actually very fit but may enjoy a Coke or Pepsi every now and then? They should be charged too. Edit. Also, couldn't that be considered fat shaming? I think we should defend obese people against people being mean, but arguing for and defending obesity itself is a really stupid thing. This is patronizing bullshit and another way for the rich to sidestep paying taxes by shifting the burden to the lower class. Why should everyone be disproportionately hurt in order to enforce healthiness while the millionaire class gets off scot-free? Trust people to think for themselves and make choices that they want. To quote women's rights activists, "My body, my choice." No, that's not the way to combat obesity. Poorer Americans, those most affected by obesity, need help getting healthy, not a tax. Make gyms free for the poor. Provide poor people with free bikes and build bike lanes. Work on opening fresh groceries in poor neighborhoods. Make cities more walkable. Build more outside play/exercise spaces. Encourage PR to take walking breaks at work. This is hard. Cheap and dirty solutions like extra taxes do not work. The issue is systemic, and you cannot fix it with a band-aid. Or we can tax the companies. Or just put a bunch of regulations on it, like we did with tobacco. I read that a lot of people didn't have access to fresh vegetables. It could be a better idea to improve this access. Also, I know you guys don't like social democracy, but as French I think our system did work. School lunch are cooked and are generally healthy. Unhealthy food like French fries or pizza are extremely rare. There are vegetable at each meal. I heard that in the USA, school lunch are processed food and not exactly good quality. Maybe a French-like system would work to decrease obesity, since we know it starts from a young age. Our schools are underfunded as is. This isn't something that would work in the States. Our K-12 schools are funded through property taxes, and making this a requirement would further strain already heavily strained schools. I don't need a nanny, and the government doesn't need more of my money to spend poorly. Should the USA place insert tax here? No. This kind of happened in Chicago a few years ago. A lot of people complained. People argued the government shouldn't try to force people, especially lower income folks, to pay more for sugary drinks and suck. It was removed after a while. This is all speculation, but TBH, I feel like the tax was only implemented to convince lower income people to leave Chicago. The tax had some weird applications that mostly affected less fortunate citizens. No. First, I hate that the government thinks they know what is best for me. This cuts both ways politically. Second, it is a regressive tax. I can afford a tax on junk food, and it won't change my buying habits. But someone poor already can't buy healthier food. Why make them pay more? This is just a way to bring in more tax revenue and make it sound good. Finally, it doesn't work. You're active. If you can guarantee that the tax raised is used as extra money to combat obesity rather than being used to fund whatever the president wants to spend it on this week, I'm going to go with no. The US government has more power than I like already. They can duck right off with new taxes. I don't think that's going to stop anyone from continuing to purchase such products. Even The continuous increases in taxes on alcoholic beverages and tobacco products won't stop someone from purchasing them. This comparison shows us just how effective such a measure would be in reducing the public's desire for unhealthy products. Instead of a fat tax, how about we make the healthier things much cheaper than the unhealthier things in order to spur an interest in them? One of the most repetitive, problematic, and illogical solutions to combating obesity is the lack of spurring interest in affordable healthier options. I will never understand the logic of why unhealthier options are always much cheaper than their healthier counterparts. Even the continuous increases in taxes on alcoholic beverages and tobacco products won't stop someone from purchasing them. Literally the opposite is true. Taxing tobacco and alcohol is strongly correlated to a decrease in people using those items. You'll never stop everyone, but you can decrease the amount that is consumed by society at large. Even in the US, tax money pays for a huge amount of healthcare. We have a strong interest in keeping the general population healthy. Chicago already does this on sugar drinks like soda. I think it is 5%, but don't quote me on that percent. Edit. Sorry, I guess it was repealed. I am not there often, so I did not know. Is there still a bag tax? Like 10 if you don't bring your own bag? Philadelphia does this too. Is it as unpopular there as it is here? No, totally opposed. Stop telling people how to live their life. No, in the UK we have a sugar tax and it's completely pointless. It's not gonna stop me buying more sugary drinks. All it's doing is lining their pockets. I doubt the taxes even go to our NHS. Edit. I feel bad for the poor families affected by this. Fellow Brit here, it's a good idea on paper, but not in practice. I believe the taxes go to funding for sport in UK schools. So every time you buy a Coca-Cola, you're funding something decent. No, fatness is freedom and taxation is theft. They don't need to tax anything, just stop subsidizing crops like corn. There's no reason they should be paying farmers to grow cheese that's unhealthy. Well, I mean, corn is in everything, healthy and non-healthy. Hell, it's even in some gasoline. Hell no. This is a free country. Don't tell me what to eat. Yes, if you also make healthy food more affordable and the meal sizes in general more normal. A relative of mine has been in America, and he told me the size of a meal for just one person there could feed 3 people here. Of course that's not a reliable source, but big meals are typically American. Why should the government be combating obesity? It is a personal lifestyle choice which people have the right to make in the first place. Because even with that tax, the junk food would still be cheaper than healthy food. So what you have achieved is basically make those who can't afford healthy food and all of in food desserts even more poor. I live in Finland. We are also talking about all sorts of junk food taxes and whatnot. But no one is talking about removing VAT from fresh food and basic stuffs. They want to add meat tax, but they don't want to remove VAT from vegetables, which are outrageously expensive at the end of the day. We don't suffer from food desserts or such like USA, but everything here is quite expensive. Yeah, the UK already have a sugar tax. We do. It currently only applies to drinks with a certain amount of sugar in them, and it actually works as well. Talking from a restaurant pub here, but here's some points I noticed. 1. When presented with the option of paying 20p extra to have Pepsi instead of Diet Pepsi, a significant number of people say I'll just have the diet. In terms of sales, I don't know the exact amounts, but I do know we used to get roughly 2 to 3 times as much Pepsi as Maximum/Diet in the weekly delivery. It's now double the amount of Maximum compared to full sugar. So less sugar is being drunk. 2. Kids get told they can only have diet more often than before. I personally believe this is building an association of sugary drinks being a treat in kids' heads. Whilst this is purely speculative, I'm hoping that it encourages kids to be more aware of food's relative healthiness. 3. A big criticism is sweeteners are bad for you too. Whilst it's unclear if this is true or not, I think sweeteners are the lesser of 2 evils. 4. Some brands like Brew have changed their recipes to have less sugar, so they are under the threshold to be taxed. I'm on the fence about this one. Brew has always been a treat for me, and I'd rather do treats properly. 5. A lot of people dislike the fact they no longer get to choose if they want to be healthy without a cost. This is a fair argument. I think there are counter arguments, but they are definitely debatable. Overall, I don't think it's a perfect system, but I'd say the benefits outweigh the downsides. Mainly because I believe it has a positive long-term effect on children's attitude towards what they drink, and also to their health without them realizing. I appreciate I have no data or evidence to back this up other than anecdotal observation, so it's a speculative conclusion, but it's my personal view on the matter. The problem is that this would just become a poor tax, since it's typically poor people that eat pop and chips daily, such as myself. If anything, offering tax incentive gym memberships would help. Don't need a gym to get into shape. As our beloved Ron Swanson once said, the whole point of this country is, if you want to eat garbage, balloon up to 600 pounds and die of a heart attack at 43, you can. You are free to do so. Whether or not that's the right thing to do, I suppose, is up to the individual. You might say it would be a less selfish thing to put less of a stress on our healthcare system by being healthy, but leaving responsibility in the hands of the people is a double-edged sword. It works sometimes, and it often doesn't. That kind of tax exists in Mexico. It doesn't work. Source: me, a Mexican. No. Stop regulating America. My landlord is 92 and eats whatever the hell he wants. My great-grandparents lived to 106 over 107. Stop trying to control people. If you don't want to be fat, then go on a refn diet, but it is not your place to then attempt to force everyone else to partake. Last I checked, being fat isn't a crime or a violation of civil rights. Last I checked, being fat isn't a crime or a violation of civil rights. Neither are a bunch of things which have taxes on them. No, we are taxed to death as it is. Huge taxes on cigarettes and other tobacco products have not deterred the me's from smoking or chewing tobacco products. It would just be yet another way for the government to suck us dry of our hard-earned money. Where I live, we have a 10% sales tax on everything we buy, including all groceries at the grocery store. It's crazy. The government cannot even properly manage the tax money they already receive. Why should they get more? Or we could just mail healthy eating affordable. Buying healthy foods and cooking yourself is already the cheapest way to do it. Many people just don't have the time or are too lazy to do it. Sin taxes are horrible and usually just a money grab by government officials who are too cowardly to tell the entire population they need to pay more in taxes. Drinking/eating sugary stuff isn't bad. Doing it in excess is. Stop punishing people who can do things responsibly because others can't. No, it's up to the people to decide to be healthy or not. The government shouldn't punish a company for what is clearly known. It's supposed to be a free country. Let us choose what we damn well please. There's enough races as it is. No, because solving problems through taxes doesn't work. It just makes the government richer. No. It is the citizen's decision whether or not to eat something or not to eat something. If it has a negative effect on their health, that's on them. And what about people that need sugar and fat to live? Then they would be at the disadvantage, having to pay more. No, taxation is theft. No, they did it in the UK and all the best drinks now taste like shiz because they are mostly sugar free. Also, it basically works like a tax on the poor. The rich won't think twice about spending an extra one on a drink, but for people on lower wages it really adds up fast. RIP Ein Brew. Should not for the following reasons. 1. Taxing vices to reduce/eliminate them doesn't work. 2. Vice taxes are aggressive. i.e., they tax the poor disproportionately. For example, the cigarette tax. If someone wants to make an informed decision to eat food that is bad for them, what right do I have to try and stop them? However, in the pursuit of a universal/taxpayer funded healthcare system, decreasing the amount of people with chronic health problems like obesity would be very important. I'm torn. On one side I want freedom, and on the other I want social programs. You can only have one or the other. Yeah, let's allow the feds the ability to tax more of our lives they don't have enough F-35s to waste taxpayer money on. /s. Or we could just tax the rich and leave people to duck alone with their vices. It's not like people are trying to become obese. People don't seem to understand freedoms. It's a horrible idea to let the government tax this. It's not the government's job to ensure I'm not obese. It's my choice to do that. I pay for my own healthcare, so why does the government have any say in how I live? The government is not my parents. It has no right to tell me how to live my life. We are overtaxed as it is. What the taxes are used for is moot. The government always cuts education, so they look at other ways to justify taxation, when you should be paying attention to what your taxes are actually going towards. It's like everyone forgot what the Boston Tea Party was actually about. It wasn't the tea tax. Society has been dumbed down by the education system to think these taxes are good for us. It's not. Well, the sugar tax has worked out pretty well in the UK. It caused a fuss at first, but then people just switched to Coke Zero, Pepsi Maximum ECT. I don't think we should on food, since it's hard to define which exact foods are junk foods. Sort of like how an assault weapons ban is silly, since it's difficult to define what weapons are really assault weapons. Having lived in the USA and Canada, I think one of the smart things the Canadian government did after implementing socialized healthcare was add lots of extra tax on alcohol and tobacco. It's like, we know if you're addicted to these things, you're going to end up in the hospital, so this way you're paying for future use cancer treatments. I also like the way they require a CLA for firearm ownership. That is similar to hunter safety, really cuts down on accidents, and that's coming from a veteran/gun owner. Tax unhealthy fats, and subsidize vegetables and other healthier choices. I can't see how this is not a thing. No, because duck you and your taxes. If anything, we need to remove taxes, not increase them. Hell no. This ends up being a tax on the poor, not to mention the burden it would place on those in food deserts. No, the point of taxes is not to fine people for behavior we don't like. If you have a problem with other people being obese, stop lobbying for a healthcare system that has you paying for their healthcare. Questions like this are one of the key reasons I oppose nationalized healthcare. It gives people the idea that they basically own stock in your body and get to make decisions about your health because I'm paying for it. UK already have a sugar tax, and I think it's great. No, people know how to avoid obesity. Don't overdo it with junk food and move around a little bit. Why should a fit person have to pay more for a treat just because obese people eat it for every meal? No, they should just make healthy food more affordable. There is nothing wrong with enjoying these snacks once in a while. You gotta live life a little sometimes. The problem is overconsumption, and people who aren't well off can't eat a healthy lifestyle. I think there should be a tax for trash and one-time use materials, not a fat tax. No, for the simple fact of, it's none of the government's business what I eat. No, might as well call it a freedom tax. They ought to at least stop subsidizing sugar, corn, etc. Then consider taxes on foods with more than X grams of sugar or fat. Only if they put the same tax on everything else that isn't either a fruit, vegetable, or grain. Yeah, you'll actually think people are gonna mind paying the extra 5 cents for a soda? I live in Orlando, and people pay $10 for a can of Coke with a smile on their face. Oh my, you watched until the end? That's ducking awesome, dude. Thanks for watching.